Okay, it says we're live. We're going to go with that. I've got a whole new console here telling me all kinds of great things about what we are doing. So we must be live. Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. We are in a pre-show right now, sort of seeing the show as it's getting started. We're doing our Security Plus study group today. I have an hour of Q&A we'll be doing at the beginning, and then we'll open up the phone lines for everybody else. Hello, chat room. We'll be sending out the notifications in about 5 minutes. Those should automatically appear. We'll get a number of people showing up at that point. I'm checking the viewers and the analytics and looking good. And as you can see on my screen, watching the storm. Here at Messer Studios, we are headquartered in Florida. So, of course, it's right where the storm's going, heading straight for us. Just an enormous cone of wind that could possibly come here. We're going to find out. So we've been watching that all day, looking at the storm paths from the National Hurricane Center, looking at some of the models. These, of course, are not things that you should take as something that would absolutely happen, but it gives us an idea of what some of the computer models think is going to happen. And the models are changing constantly. So I'm keeping an eye on those as well. We'll see how things go. Should hit this weekend. So you can always check back in. Let's see. We don't have a live stream next week. Next week is Labor Day here in the United States. So there's no live stream next week. But if we're here the week after, then you'll know we made it. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. Last season, we had a big storm come through. We had to cancel because we did not have any power. I think by the time the study group came along, we had power, but the internet connection had not been restored. So that doesn't work either. So we had to push that a week. We're finally at the point where things are back on track. And now, of course, the storms are coming in. Well, you can always head out to the study group. We'll do the study group for an hour. There's no storm here. We've got plenty of time. I've already gone and purchased all of the storm supplies. So everything here is fine. We're just fine. The study group today, as I mentioned, is Security Plus. I'm checking in. I got my recordings going here, recordings going in the other room, and recording on the YouTube. So we got everything. Hello, chat room. Thanks for checking in. Nigeria has checked in. First one's checking in here in the pre-show. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I've got all Q&A today that I've written. I wrote this weekend just for the Security Plus. There's a lot going on with Security Plus right now for me. I'm working on a little project that's all about Security Plus. So maybe I'll have something to talk about next month on that. Nothing to talk about quite yet, but we're getting close. Hello, Missouri. Welcome. Thanks for being in the chat room. For those of you watching on the YouTube side, you'll notice there's no YouTube chat there. I'm not convinced yet I want to go to YouTube chat. I might still do it. I'm going to play around with that during the break, assuming I have power. But I'm thinking of integrating the YouTube chat into this. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. It could be a completely bad idea. It might be a horrible idea. So that may not be where I go with that. But the chat is at professormesser.com/live for now. There's a chat built into that. No, I'm not doing any World of Warcraft Classic, I'm afraid. The Classic, there's a reason we upgraded from Classic, isn't there? I know that's enormously popular for the Classic stuff, but geez, it is really, I can't see going back to the clunky UI and all of those improvements to the product that were made over the years. We're just going to throw those out and go to Classic. What was wrong with the existing one playing the old? Just start a new. Yeah, it's nostalgia. I get it. I understand, but I think it's a flashy pan. I don't think it's going to stick around very long. There will still be people using it, of course, but right now it's massively interesting for folks. They're trying it out and seeing how it goes, which they should. It's a great game, of course. So that's one of those things. There's South Carolina. So South Carolina, obviously in the same boat I am in, watching the weather. We're on the weather discords. We're on the tropical storm discords. We're on constantly looking at spaghettimodels.com. We're constantly looking at what's coming out from the National Hurricane Center. It's just content. Dominican Republic, what are you even doing online right now? You should be really getting ready for some rain. I don't know, it might miss you a good bit. I haven't looked to see just how wide that storm track is to be able to see that. So Dominican Republic, Jamaica, welcome. Thank you for being in the chat. Iraq is checking in. Hello, U.S. and Iraq. We've got all of this happening here in the Caribbean right now with the storm. So that's kind of where everybody's mindset is. Let's see if I can get some of my cameras going. Looks good. For those of you that were here last week, I was having problems with my auxiliary output. On my screen, it was this little window. You can only see the bottom part of the window, but it was this window right here was flashing. And it was just a loose cable. I just unplugged the cable from the back of the video switcher, plugged it back in, everything's fine. Have you turned it off, turned it back on again, kind of thing. So it worked. It was an easy fix. Hello, Silver Spring, Maryland, Norfolk, Fairfax. You could be getting some of the weather up that direction too. Welcome, Puebla, Mexico. There, Puerto Rico. You guys are there. Well, what else are you going to do, right? The storm's coming. Everybody's in storm mode. So everybody's sort of getting into, there's a mode everybody gets into where suddenly now it's not normal day. You're going out and getting all of your supplies. You're making sure you have everything at home. You're bringing things inside that are normally outside that can be blown around. So there's just a normal thing for those. It makes sense to be able to do that. Hey, India, welcome for being here. Thank you for joining us. San Diego, welcome, California. Good to have you here. Haven't been out to San Diego in a while. I need to get back out there. When's the last time I went out there? I went out there for a business trip. It was a internal conference meeting kind of thing. I can't even remember how long it's been now. 4 or 5 years. Utah's here. Welcome. Chicago has checked into the chat room. Welcome. There's Ohio. Haven't been to Ohio in a while. Haven't been to Dublin in quite some time. So that's how that goes. Another Utah is here. Welcome. PA is in PA. That's convenient. Let's see if we can get the study group content up and running and ready to go here. I've got, there it is. We've got to get everything ready to go here. Where's the keynote? Right there. Is it green? It is green. New York's there. Welcome, New York. Hello, baby Alicia. Hello, sweetheart. She loves my soothing voice. Well, that's just all of the mechanics that I have here. Actually, I have a very squeaky, high-pitched voice, but I just use all the electronics in this room to tone it down. So that's it. I have not even looked into the carbon black VMware stuff yet. I've literally been so busy with other things that I haven't even looked at any of my industry news stuff for the week. And here it is Wednesday already. That just happened immediately. I don't know how that happened. There's San Antonio checking in. Ottawa, there's my Canadians. I have a soft spot there for Canada. I was up in that neck of the woods recently. Went there this summer. It's nice. PA, another PA checking in. We've got a couple of minutes before we get started. This is not the show. This would be the worst study group ever. No, there's actual study group that we're going to be doing here in a moment. So do not worry. We will be getting this going. We've got a minute to go, and we'll have all of these things in place and ready to go. Hello, Toronto. See, I was in Hamilton this summer. Did a visit over to Hamilton and the wine areas there. Went to see family. And then also went to Vancouver this summer. We were all over Canada. And here we are back in Florida just in time for the storm. Just in time for the weather. Of course it is. That's how it always works. If you purchase a hardcover study guide, I don't have a study guide, but my course notes, I do have a hardcover version of that. Usually it takes about a week to get there. They're printed on demand. They ship out of the warehouse. And it's shipped first class mail, which usually in the U.S. takes about 3 days to get there. So it's about 4 days, sometimes 5, depends on if you order before the weekend. Obviously, during the weekend, nothing's going on. We're not shipping. We're not creating content. We're not making the books on the weekend. But we'll have, that's what all those are about. Well, it's about time to get started. Let's do that, everybody. Let's do a study group. Here we go. That's it. Hello. God, I will get a study group started in a moment. It will not be the screen the entire time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2019 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group for August 2019 already. How did that happen? I'm James Messer. I'll be your host for this hour of Q&A. I'm going to ask you questions online, and you will answer the questions online, and we'll see how you do. We'll see how well these questions are answered. Thanks for joining us. So glad to have you here. I'm going to be giving you all these questions during the first hour, and in the second hour, we have what we call our after show, where I will turn around this question and answering so you will get questions asked of me. I'll open up the phone lines. I'll take questions from the chat room. So we'll simply reverse it and send things in that way. I'm able to do this thanks to your ongoing support. Of course, every one of my videos, every minute of every video available for you to watch for free online at professormesser.com. Some people like to have an offline version of the videos, so I have those for sale. You can learn more about those at professormesser.com/getsecplus. Those have not just the HD videos, they also have MP3 audio versions. You can also purchase the audio versions separately. And those, of course, come with my course notes. We'll talk about the course notes in just a bit. Of course, we have lots going on here. You can keep track of what we're doing on our Twitter stream, professormesser.com/Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. Just type in professormesser.com/ the thing you would like to find me on, whether that's /Instagram, /LinkedIn, whatever that is. You will find it, and there will probably be something there. And if there's not something there, you can tell me. Send me a note, say you need to be on that thing with the stuff, and I'll be glad to consider that. I'm not sure I want to be on every single social media site there is, but you never know. Send me a note. We'll find out. There is a video replay of this available immediately afterwards. I click a button, it takes a couple of minutes to process, but the replays are automatic. It's just there if you happen to miss the live stream. There's also an audio-only version available in podcast form. So if you have a podcast listening program, it can be automatically downloaded when it's made available, usually in the afternoons after we finish these study groups. Takes me a few hours, but I finally get it posted. You can find out about those podcast audio versions at professormesser.com/podcast. You'll find podcast editions for our A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups right there. You can either play them live on that page or have the link there that imports directly into your podcast program. If you check in about a day after the study group over on the YouTube side, I have my marketing manager, Lori. She's nice enough to listen to this whole thing and put timestamps in for everything that we do. So if you're going back and trying to find a specific thing we talked about, if you were here all the time, you like to skip over the first part of this and go directly to the first question, I get it. So got links here so you can go directly to that content and be able to find exactly what you're looking for. Those are in the YouTube video descriptions. We are going to talk all about Security Plus today. And this will be specifically the SY0501 Security Plus exam. That's the current version. That's the version that was released in October of 2017. So this is a version that is current. In fact, we'll probably see this version here until probably another year and a half. So if you are studying for your Security Plus and everything that you're studying from says the SY0501, you've got the right version. So definitely study from that. The Security Plus exam is a single exam, 90 minutes long. You could get a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than 90 questions, but they won't have more than 90. The passing score is on a scale of 100 to 900. The passing score is a 750. I know it doesn't make any sense, and I think that's intentional, but that's how it works. The best thing I can offer is to do as well as you can. You will make or earn points as you get questions right. Get as many questions right as you can. We don't know how many questions that is because the questions are all worth different amounts. So the 750 is just what you need to work towards. It's something you'll find out at the end of the exam anyway. So that's the real case. The exam itself is a multiple choice exam, but the first handful of questions that you get right at the beginning are performance-based questions. These are questions that are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be asking you to drag and drop. You might be putting things in a particular order from fastest to slowest or highest to lowest. We aren't quite sure exactly what you will see in those handful of questions at the beginning, but you need to be prepared for that. Don't just think you're going to walk into the exam and get all multiple choice. Some people are thrown because you have those first handful of questions that seem to be very complex, and you're not expecting 90 minutes to go by quite so fast when you go through those. So keep your eye on those. We're going to do a performance-based question in just a moment. We'll get started with one, so stand by for that. Well, you, of course, are able to participate today. I'm going to ask you questions. You are going to answer online. You can, of course, if this is a replay, you're not able to do that. So just sit there on the replay, make a note of what your answer is. But if you're here live, you're able to plug in your answer online by going to professormesser.com/QA. It pop open a new browser window and go to that URL, and you'll be able to see a question that is waiting for you right now on the screen. So it's a good place to go. That question is also available on the Socrative student app. If you want to get your mobile device and load this app on it from your favorite app store or Google Play, you can go to find the Socrative student app. You want the one that's for the student, not the one for the teacher. The teacher is the one for me. It will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word. Make sure you spell it right, PROFESSOR just as it has on the screen, just as it has at the bottom of the page as well, if you're ever wondering. Professor Messer, right there. It's written there. That way, if you type in all of those things correctly, you will see there is a question waiting for you. We call this our rewind question because it's a question from last month. We're going to see if the Socrative piece is working, if you're able to get in and see the questions. The question asks, a web server administrator for a large data center needs to store all of the HTTPS encryption keys on a secure storage device. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? And there are 5 options available on the screen: FDE, FTPS, HSM, TPM, and UEFI. Those are your 5 different options. A web server administrator for a large data center needs to store all of the HTTPS encryption keys on a secure storage device. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Is it FDE, FTPS, HSM, TPM, UEFI? Those are your 5 different options. So you will go to professormesser.com/QA. You will see those options on your screen. You will lock in those options. And as you can see, those numbers are updating on the screen as people are locking in what their answer is. Now, what we want to do as we're going through all of these is this is where you answer the questions, is at professormesser.com/QA. Please no hints in the chat room. Don't put any answers in the chat room. You want to go directly to professormesser.com/QA and answer your question there. Maybe some of you know the answer. I think some of you were here last month because 62% of the people who have answered so far have answered HSM. Now, if you're not familiar with these abbreviations, each one of those abbreviations is a real thing. It is something you probably do need to know for the Security Plus. All 5 of those are Security Plus acronyms. This acronym for HSM, though, stands for a Hardware Security Module. This is usually a purpose-built appliance or a server that is dedicated for this particular purpose. Very commonly has specialized hardware inside of it. This is where you would back up your keys. This would be where you would, for instance, put all your private keys. Great place to put them. Since there is hardware in here for any type of cryptographic functions, like being able to terminate an SSL or TLS session, that's a great place to do it. You commonly find it in a data center. There are usually multiples of these. There's redundancy, there's power, there's different configurations of these, but you will certainly find hardware security modules, especially in sites that have many, many keys that need to be managed and need to be secured. HSM is a great way to do it. So if you answered C, HSM is the answer. The 63% of you got that one absolutely right. It would not be full disk encryption. It would not be FTP secure file transfers. It would not be a TPM module. Usually that's for a single device, a trusted platform module, or UEFI, which is a type of BIOS. None of those would be the correct answer. The only answer really here is the one for HSM. 64% of you got that one right. So well done. Whether you remembered it from last month or whether it's something brand new to you, you did well to get that answer on that one. Let's now move to new questions. The first question, as I mentioned, every month is a performance-based question. And as I mentioned, performance-based questions are not multiple choice questions. These are questions that are anything but multiple choice. So that's a real challenge when you're trying to figure this out on the exam. The question I have for you is a fill in the blank. Boy, talk about making it a little bit challenging. It's not a drag and drop. It's not a matching. I'm not giving you any clues on this one. In fact, some of these could probably have multiple answers associated with them, but we're freestyling this. We're trying to figure out the details. It's a fill in the blank. I think you can lock in a number of these to have this configured. Let's go through this performance-based question for this month. The performance-based question asks, what secure protocols would be associated with these traffic flows? So I have 5 different traffic flows here. I want you to tell me what secure protocols would be associated with these traffic flows. The first flow is the checkout process when purchasing concert tickets. What secure protocol would be associated with that traffic flow? The second one is transfer a file between devices over TCP/22. That's probably a very specific traffic flow and protocol. The third is confirm the results of an FQDN query. Confirm the results of an FQDN query. The fourth is authenticate a user over TCP 636. That's another very specific port number, isn't it? And the last one is retrieve performance metrics from a core router. So we want to know what secure protocols would be associated with those traffic flows. The first is the checkout process when purchasing concert tickets. The second is transferring a file between devices over TCP/22. The third is confirming the results of an FQDN query. The fourth is authenticating a user over TCP 636. And the last one is retrieving performance metrics from a core router. Now, if you think you know the answer, you want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answers. This is fill in the blank. There's no multiple choice on this one. So you have to go through this process to be able to fill in each one of these. And they're all different. I say they're all different. Yes, they are all different. All 5 of these are different secure protocols that you would like to fill in to this link. Yeah, for those of you in the chat room asking about continuing education unit credit, listen in for this first hour. Sometime during this first hour, I will give you instructions on how you can earn a CEU and how I can send you a digitally signed email that confirms that you were here. I'll tell you the whole process. Just stick around. We will get to that in just a moment. Well, a number of you are struggling with secure protocols because I can see the answers as they are coming in on my side and how quickly the answers are coming in on my side. Not a lot of people have answered this one yet relative to the multiple choice ones that we get. Multiple choice tends to go usually very quick to put these in here. But the folks that have answered, you're pretty good. You're pretty spot on with the protocols that would be used for this. Some of you were guessing on some of these. You're not completely sure about the port numbers that would be in use. So we're going to have to see if this is really exactly what we would expect to see. Let's see how we did though. Let's go through each of these, all 5, and let's see what these secure protocols happen to be. Let's start with A. I kind of gave you an easy one to start off. So A is the checkout process when purchasing concert tickets. Many of us have done this before. We've checked out when purchasing the tickets, and hopefully they have configured some secure protocols in their web server. Ideally, what would be running as HTTPS, I would accept that. But what I'm really looking for is SSL, or what is really today TLS. There's a big conversation we had this morning on the Discord associated with the CompTIA subreddit, where people were saying, wait a second, is it SSL or is it TLS? Well, TLS is the protocol we use these days. SSL should never be used. SSL is so old and has so many vulnerabilities. It's not a protocol that should even be enabled on anyone's devices. Yet, whenever we talk about encryption with a web browser, we always say SSL, but we aren't using SSL, or we shouldn't be. But that's just one of those things where we took SSL and we fixed it. We made it better, but it's a newly named protocol called TLS. It's the big brother of SSL, but we just never changed the name in our nomenclature. The way we talk about this protocol, SSL, it's so easy to say, SSL. Much easier to say than TLS. TLS, much more difficult to say. That's probably why we just say SSL. SSL. It's so easy. So whether someone says SSL, what they really mean these days is TLS, unless they really are referring to someone running the older insecure SSL protocol, at which point you would probably need to do some type of clarification. You see how confusing this can be? So whenever you hear somebody say SSL, most of the time you can assume they're really talking about TLS. Let's do the next one. The next traffic flow, transfer a file between devices over TCP 22. Now, TCP 22 is commonly used for SSH, secure shell. But SSH, when it was created, is able not only to provide encrypted terminal communication, that same functionality, that same utility can also provide encrypted file transfers using SFTP. So if you answered SFTP, that's what we were looking for. We were not looking for SSH because we're transferring a file. And SSH on its own, secure shell, really is the terminal piece. Whenever we talk about file transfers, we're talking about the secure side of SSH for file transfers called SFTP. SSH pretty functional on that particular port number. SFTP really what we were looking at for those. We also have other, our third one, confirm the results of an FQDN query. Confirm the results of an FQDN query done through DNSSEC. It's a very good way to be able to use DNSSEC. Oh yes, for TCP 22, if somebody was doing a secure copy, that's effectively what that is as well. Secure copy also runs on that. I'd accept that. I think that works just fine for me. As I mentioned, a number of these, you will find multiple utilities and protocols using some of these port numbers, and you will use multiple protocols to accomplish a number of these as well. DNSSEC is a way that you could put a private key and be able to digitally sign information on a DNS server. So if you're doing a fully qualified domain name query, you would be able to use the DNSSEC protocols to be able to make that happen. We also have this piece. We've got answer D, authenticate a user over TCP 636. TCP 636 is LDAP. And if you're doing the secure version of LDAP, then you are doing LDAP-S. LDAP-S. Yes, that's exactly how we should focus on doing that. LDAP-S. LDAP is the TCP 636. A number of you were choosing other authentication protocols, but LDAP is the one that uses 636. So a secure version of LDAP would be LDAP-S. And the last one is retrieving performance metrics from a core router. Many of you got this one right. A large percentage, although a number of you didn't include the version number, which is so very important with this one. It's SNMP, but it's SNMP version 3. Version 3 is the version that includes the security part, the encryption part. So make sure that you have the V3 at the end to specify, oh yes, that's the one doing the encryption. So you want to be sure that you're not using SNMP v1 or SNMP v2 to be able to do that. If you want it to be secure, it has to be SNMP v3. So those are our 5 options. Checking out when purchasing concert tickets, SSL or TLS, transferring a file between devices over TCP 22, SFTP or anything comparable, confirming the results of a fully qualified domain name query is DNSSEC, authenticate a user over TCP 636 is LDAP-S, and retrieving performance metrics from a core router, SNMP v3. Now, on your exam, You could be asked multiple choice. This could be a matching question. You may be asked to drag and drop from a large list, so it's not quite as a gimme as you might expect. So make sure you're very familiar with these secure protocols. If you need a reference, this comes directly from section 2.6 of the exam objectives. The name of my video that goes through these secure protocols is called Secure Protocols. So that's a good place to go to be able to update yourself on these particular topics. Well, nice job on the performance-based question. Let's now shift gears to do a multiple choice question. I've got one that we can start from. Our multiple choice question asks, which of these would be the best way to determine the version of a web server running on a remote device? Which of these would be the best way to determine the version of a web server running on a remote device? Would it be ping, a honeypot, a banner grabber, a steganography tool, or netstat? Those are your 5 different options. Which of these would be the best way to determine the version of a web server running on a remote device? Would it be ping, honeypot, banner grabber, steganography tool, or netstat? Those are your 5 options. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room or hints in the chat room. We're going to pretend we are in the exam. We have no Google that we can turn to. There are no resources available but what's in our brain. That is where we need to go to be able to do that. So make sure you are guessing these as well, which is another good thing to do on your exam, by the way, is always take a guess. Never leave a question blank. You only get credit if you get a question right. You will only have an opportunity to earn points by guessing and getting a question right, or knowing a question, getting a question right. If you take a guess and you get a question wrong, they don't take points away from you. So there's no penalty for taking a guess. So you should always take a guess to be able to do that. Let's see how you did with your guess. Which of these would be the best way to determine the version of a web server running on a remote device? And we're a little torn on this one, although we can go with the majority. 52%, just barely squeaking over the very middle, goes with C, banner grabber. Although 37% of you said, no, we can do that with netstat. That's the best way to do it. And then single digits for ping, steganography tool, and honeypot. So let's go ahead and move off to the side the ping and the honeypot and the steganography tool. We want to capture those banners to be able to see those version numbers. So we need to use some type of utility that can be a banner grabbing utility. When you first connect to a service, many of these services provide back to the client information about what you're connecting to. For example, this on my screen is the message that is sent back to your browser when you connect to professormesser.com. Before you've even done anything, my web server goes, oh yeah, here, this is me. Here's a bunch of information about my web server. It's Cloudflare Nginx is what you're connecting to. You'll get a date and time. You'll get a type of content, the connection. There's a cookie information, cache control, expiration, and something that Cloudflare uses, which is CFRay. So you can see the message that they put there. So you can gather a lot of intel by simply connecting to a service and then never sending it any data. You haven't even logged in. You haven't sent it a command. You haven't done anything. You have simply sent information to it. These banners are very often there. You're not going to see it in your browser, but you can capture it if you have the right utility. Some people will simply use Telnet, which is a very easy way to connect to non-encrypted type of devices. There's another utility, NC, which is also Netcat, to be able to do that. Netcat, very common one to use. Sometimes you will find tools like Nmap or vulnerability scanners that will also perform banner grabbing so that they can determine if a service may be misconfigured. Because as you might want to expect, you don't want to send a lot of information to the bad guys. You want to limit what they're able to see. You do not want them to know what version of a web server you happen to be using, because they'll simply go back and see if there's any vulnerabilities associated with that web server version. Let's not give them too much information. So banner grabbing, a useful tool for recon. Hopefully the system administrator is limiting the information that you would be able to see by performing that banner grabbing function. So grab your netcat, grab your nmap, be able to look at those banners. It's a great way to see what's going on. And as you can see, 52% of you that chose banner grabber, yeah, you got that one right. Absolutely correct. Netstat would not be used for this. Netstat is able to tell you all of the connections that are being made either outgoing or incoming to your computer, but it doesn't give you a lot of information about the details of the app. It's not going to tell you what the version is of a web service that you're connecting to. It will tell you you're connecting to a web service and that you're sending information back and forth over port 80 or port 443 or whatever port number that web server is using. But Netstat is not going to be able to provide you information about what version happens to be running on that particular server. And of course, things like ping, a honeypot, or steganography tool are certainly not going to be able to provide that for you either. Your only option in this particular answer is indeed C, banner grabber. And if you were one of the 52% of you that answered banner grabber, you got that one absolutely right. Well, I've got another multiple choice question. Let's shift over to another one that I have here. This one asks or says or happens to state, a malicious application has circumvented your wireless access point and is communicating directly between devices. Which of the following would best describe this technique? A malicious application has circumvented your wireless access point and is communicating directly between devices. Which of the following would best describe this technique? Is it VLAN, NAT, static routing, virtualization, or ad hoc? Those are your 5 different options. Is it VLAN, NAT, static routing, virtualization, or ad hoc? You can lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA, lock it in right there, get your answers all in. A lot of you are trying to figure these out. I can tell when the chat room goes quiet, I know that there's got to be some work. People are thinking or you're Googling. So stop Googling the answers. One of the two. Hopefully you're just thinking about this, figuring out the details of what comes next on this one. If a malicious application has circumvented your wireless access point, is communicating directly between devices, which of the following would best describe that technique? It's actually a pretty interesting technique to use, isn't it? We're talking directly between wireless devices to be able to do that. You can see the number of you have locked in your answers. Let's see how you did. I'll click the How Do We Do button. And 64% of us say it's ad hoc. But double digits, 15% say static routing is the way you would do that. 10% of you say, no, it's NAT. That is exactly how you would make that happen. And then kind of a tie for fourth between VLAN and virtualization. So those are our 5 different options. How would we be able to communicate between devices but circumvent the access point? Well, you do that through ad hoc communication. You're able to communicate directly between mobile devices or wireless devices without needing an access point. So you're able to forget using the infrastructure, just communicate back and forth. Some devices do this already, and you can configure your mobile devices, for example, to provide some of that functionality. Things like AirDrop, they're sharing apps that perform some of these functions. The problem, of course, if these devices are communicating between each other is how do you manage what they're sending to each other, which, of course, is not as important at home, but becomes very important for a business that needs to protect their data. So being able to manage these devices using a mobile device manager or an MDM becomes very useful. The manager of the network, the manager of the wireless devices may decide, I'm not going to allow ad hoc. I'm going to disable that functionality. The phone or the mobile device will work normally, except you're not going to be able to run anything that's going to run over ad hoc, maybe just the way that it's done. Or perhaps you add some network access control functionality. So you can use the ad hoc functionality, but only if you have the right credentials. There's plenty of opportunities for managing that functionality and how you would want to set it up in your environment. So if we look at our answers, indeed 66% of you that chose ad hoc, you got it absolutely right. That is the correct answer. 15% chose static routing. Static routing, great for being able to get traffic between your network and another network, but it has nothing to do with wireless devices communicating directly to each other. Network address translation, extremely useful for modifying the source or destination IP address as traffic flows through the network, but network address translation has no control of wireless devices communicating directly to each other. We have virtual LANs, VLANs, that are able to segment the network into different sections. Those VLANs are very useful for segmentation, but they're not very good for determining how wireless devices connect to each other. That's not what a VLAN does. Virtualization, of course, very useful for running different operating systems or different services on the same piece of hardware. Virtualization also not the emphasis when you're trying to directly communicate back and forth using some of the functionality of these devices on a wireless network. Ad hoc is the way you do it. Ad hoc is certainly going to help you when you get into a situation where you do need to communicate between two devices and you simply don't have access to a wireless access point, or there isn't a wireless access point. Ad hoc is your right answer. Well done with that. The folks that answered ad hoc, the 67% of you chose E. That's the right one to use. So well done with that. Well, you can see already as we are going through all of these topics on this exam, it's pretty broad. Security Plus is one of the broadest CompTIA exams, tons of topics that you need to know. And of course, I have over 100 videos that you could go through to be able to understand all of these details that are listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. But of course, we don't all have time to go through all 150 plus videos to be able to do that. And you may want to have notes for every single topic that I've created in these videos. So what I've done is take all of these topics dealing with network design, cloud computing, protocols, encryption, risk management, security, all the tools, all the command line, everything that's in there, I have put into a single document. So I've taken everything from every video, all of the tables, all of the charts, all of the text, and put them into a single document for you. These are my Security Plus course notes. And these course notes are able to provide you with a lot of information. Here's the course notes right here. They're provided as a PDF file. This PDF has 94 pages in it, and it goes through every bit of my videos. Every video is separated out. Here's the video on keyloggers. Here's the one on adware and spyware, on bots and botnets, on logic bombs, on phishing, and on and on. A lot of detail here. If someone has ever wanted to be able to take advantage of a set of course notes, this is a great way to do it. Now, of course, you could take your own notes, and I highly recommend that you do that. But if you don't have time, or you would like to be able to support the website, please feel free. Have a look at the course notes. You can find out more about those at professormesser.com/securitycn. I have both digital versions and physical versions. So I have a printed book version, all in full color. So it's a very nice, high quality, perfect bound softback book. So you can see there's plenty of detail here for learning more about Security Plus. And if you purchase the printed version, I'll ship it to you. And in the meantime, you get the digital version for free. So it's another thing you can think about if you're trying to figure out the best way to do that. The printed version costs a little more than $20 because it's printed. But if you are someone like me who likes to have a book that you can flip through, that might be a good option for you. Learn more about that at professormesser.com/securitycn. And of course, thank you for your ongoing support with the course notes and everything we do on our site. We would not be able to keep this running without you. So thank you so much. Let's go to our next question. I have another one for you. We're going to move to the next one. Since we're talking about VPN, let's do a question about VPN. This question asks, a security administrator would like to authenticate users connecting to a VPN tunnel. This authentication should occur over a secure channel. Which of these would be the best choice for this requirement? So going back to these questions, see if I can get this question out again. A security administrator would like to authenticate users connecting to a VPN tunnel. This authentication should occur over a secure channel. Which of these would be the best choice for this requirement? Would it be LDAP-S? Would it be HTTP? Would it be SMIME? Would it be PAP? Or would it be ACL? Those are our 5 options: LDAP-S, HTTP, SMIME, PAP, or ACL. If you think you know the answers, open up a new browser window, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can put your answers in there. Lock in what you think the answer might be. Now, if you've been paying attention this whole time, one of these may jump out at you as being the right answer. We kind of gave the answer away in an earlier question, which, by the way, happens a lot on your CompTIA exam. I often tell people, try to get through the exam as quickly as possible. Flag any questions. There's a checkbox that you could put on a question. Flag any questions you aren't completely sure about. And what you'll find is your second time through, you'll be able to answer some questions based on what another question was asking you. This is probably a good example of one of those. A security administrator would like to authenticate users connecting to a VPN tunnel. This authentication should occur over a secure channel. Which of these would be the best choice for this requirement? Let's see how we did. 72% of you were listening earlier and said, yes, we know what that is. It's LDAP-S. 11% of you chose SMIME. We'll talk in a moment why that is not the right answer. And then single digits are the rest for ACL, PAP, and HTTP. Well, if you're doing any type of authentication, you're probably going to be using LDAP. You're probably going to use Radius. You might be using TACACS. Those are 3 very common ways to authenticate. We want to do this a secure channel, so it would be the secure version of those. The only option in this list is LDAP. LDAP very commonly used to be able to gather or read information from a centralized directory on the network. You see LDAP used a lot when people want to authenticate to a Microsoft Active Directory infrastructure, because Active Directory talks LDAP. It knows LDAP. It can provide you with a way to access everything in that Microsoft Active Directory using the LDAP protocol. So that's something that's very useful if you're trying to gain access to that directory and perhaps do some authentication. LDAP's a great way to go through that piece. Now, when we were looking through our list, there's other ways that you could do this and be able to make that happen. So I think that's whenever we start getting into how do we find a way to authenticate? We could use Radius. We could use TACACS. Well, you'll notice neither one of those was on this list. The only one on this list that was a secure protocol that does authentication is LDAP-S. And that indeed was the right answer in this case for being able to have that authentication and work through the details of how you can make that happen. So if you answered A, LDAP-S, you got that one right. Now, 10% of you chose SMIME, which, by the way, of course, is a secure type of communication, but it's a secure communication for email information. So if you have emails that you're sending back and forth, it's a great way to encrypt your emails. Not a good way, or not used at all, to be able to securely authenticate to a secondary device. You also have other options here for HTTP, which is not a secure protocol at all. PAP, which is only slightly secure. It has no security to it, really. It is a way to authenticate, but there's no security to PAP, at least not built into PAP itself. And then, of course, ACL is another way to do that. The option here for ACL and being able to set up rules, permissions, and those types of things are very commonly done with ACLs, but you don't commonly use that to authenticate users to a VPN tunnel. So access control is extremely useful once you get authenticated, but not used to authenticate users itself. So that's the way it would work. So that is your options here. LDAP-S, A is the right answer. We've got time for another question. We're getting through these quickly. So I like it when we get a lot of questions in. So let's do another one. The next question asks, what type of backup makes a copy of all files that were changed since the last full backup? What type of backup makes a copy of all files that were changed since the last full backup. Your options are incremental, hybrid, offline, differential, real time. Those are your 5 options. Incremental, hybrid, offline, differential, and real time. So you have to know your backups. This is another topic that's in the exam that many people don't realize. But obviously, if you're getting into security, security is all about protecting data. Sometimes protecting the data means you have a firewall that keeps the bad people out. But protecting data also means that you're going to back up the data so that if something happens to the data, you can restore it. You have, especially for in the United States right now, state and local governments are being attacked viciously by ransomware. And this ransomware is taking advantage of these very small or relatively small municipalities that don't have. It's an enormous problem right now. The best way to protect yourself against ransomware is to have a backup. Doesn't matter if they encrypt all of your systems. You simply restore your systems and you're back. So that makes sense to be able to have that functionality. So make sure you're familiar with that as well, that you come in there to be able to do that. So hopefully that's one you've run into. Now, I know whenever I start being able to work through those, it's always an issue. So hopefully whenever you're trying to figure out backups, it's there as well. So I see that folks on the chat room are telling me they're not able to see anything coming through on the encoder. I'm looking at my streaming system now. So let me see if I can figure out what it's doing with those pieces. I don't know why it would not be showing any of those. So we're going to try to refresh a few things on our side. And I'm seeing exactly what you folks are seeing as well. So I'll let you know, the chat room know, and I'll have a look and see if we can find out why we're not receiving anything from my encoder. It's certainly possible. I am seeing, in fact, that I do not see traffic. And yet I have plenty of information on there to be able to have that. I can see a number of you to be able to see that there. So let's see if we can see if it comes back in that view. I've not ended the stream. I'm seeing that it doesn't see any data from me. I know I should pay the ransom. It's not ransomware. We're going to see here in a moment exactly what's going on. I'm going to check this in a second and see. So folks are saying, yes, I'm acknowledging things are wonky. So you're able to see things now on my screen? That's the real question, because it looks like right now that it's not showing anything, and yet I see concurrent viewers. So it's one of those where something is not quite right. So hopefully not. I'm going to look at a few things on this side. Stand by in a moment. I'm going to see if I can get those up. And now looks like YouTube suddenly arrived back again. I didn't change a thing. And yet here we are. So who knows what happened with the folks at YouTube. Hello, everyone. We're back. Sorry about that, but that was one of those that completely outside our ability here. YouTube simply went away. Everything else working, of course. I'm able to chat in the chat room. We're able to see messages that were coming up. It's able to see that you were not able to see what's happening on the YouTube, but apparently YouTube had some type of problem there. But you didn't miss anything because I waited for you on this one. So you were locking in your answers to what type of backup makes a copy of all files that were changed since the last full backup. Do you think you know what that one is? So let's see if you happen to know the answer on that one. We're going to see how we did. Oh, there we go. And 63% of you said differential, but 30% of you say incremental. This is one of those challenges when you start looking at the differences, because you have single digits for real-time, offline, and hybrid. Well, this is the one we have to figure out. You're in the right ballpark, but choosing between those two, because we often know that it's either incremental or differential to be able to do that. Obviously, a full backup will back up everything. You'll see everything. We'll capture every bit of data, and we'll store that. And if we do another full backup, we're copying all of the data again. But obviously, a lot of the files that are on your system don't change. So if it's not changing, why are we backing it up over and over? One of the things we can do is perform an incremental backup. So we can back up just what's changed since the last incremental backup. So we can do an incremental backup, and then tomorrow we'll do another incremental one, and we'll only get the things that have changed since yesterday. And then the next day we'll do another incremental backup. We'll only get the files that were changed since that last day, and being able to make that happen. The one that we were looking for was, though, a backup that copies everything that was changed since the last full backup, and that one is a differential backup. A differential backup will allow you to take a full backup. The next day it will copy anything that has changed since that full backup. The next day it will copy anything that's changed since that last full backup. So you'll start running into challenges with this, that your incremental keeps getting a little bigger, or your differential, keeps getting a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger every day. Here's how it would work visually. You have a full backup you might take on Monday. Now, between the time you take that full backup and then Tuesday, there will be some data that's changed. So we'll take a differential backup. And between Monday and Wednesday, there's probably a little more that's changed. So the next differential backup will contain everything from Tuesday plus a little bit of now what's new on Wednesday. On Thursday, we'll take everything that's changed since Monday. So we're taking everything from Tuesday, Wednesday, and adding on a little for Thursday. Now, if we ever want to restore this information, we'll need, obviously, our full backup, but then you only have to go back one day to get Thursday's differential backup to recover everything. So whenever you're trying to recover from differential, this might be a question, a good exam question. How many volumes do you need to recover from a differential backup? 2 is what you would need maximum. You need your full backup and your differential backup. As long as you have those 2, you're in good shape. You have no problem with those. So those would be your differential backup. Well, now that our stream is back and now that we are back up and running, now let's do some more questions. Oh, let's first look at your answers, by the way, and have a look at how you did with those. You can see the answers that were coming in for these. You can see that the differential backup, 63% of you were spot on. Great way to do that. 29% chose incremental, not quite the right answer, because we want to be able to capture all files since the last full backup every time we run it. Incremental is going to change since the last time we did an incremental backup. So not quite the same thing. And a hybrid, an offline, and a real-time are not backup types. Those were just terms I threw in there to see if someone would choose them. And very few of you did. Not fooling very many people on that one. You guys know your backups. So well done with that. Let's get into more security questions, though. I have another security question for you. This one asks, Robert is sending a document to Alicia, and he'd like to make sure that the contents of the document aren't modified. Which of the following should Robert follow? Robert's sending a document to Alicia. He'd like to make sure that the contents of the document aren't modified. Which of the following should Robert follow? Should he A, use his private key to digitally sign the document? Should he B, use Alicia's public key to digitally sign the document? Should he C, use his private key and Alicia's public key to create a shared symmetric key? Should he D, use his public key to digitally sign the document? Or should he E, use Alicia's private key to digitally sign the document? So there are 5 different options here. You have to be very familiar with being able to do this on the exam. So make sure. Robert is sending a document to Alicia. He'd like to make sure the contents of the document aren't modified. Which of the following should Robert follow? Should he use his private key to digitally sign the document? Should he use Alicia's public key to digitally sign the document? Should he use his private key and Alicia's public key to create a shared symmetric key? Should he use his public key to digitally sign the document? Or should he use Alicia's private key to digitally sign the document? Make sure you are familiar with these different options. This is one you absolutely need to know for your exam. Being able to understand the nuances of when you use these keys and how you use them becomes really important. And I'm not sure why people are concerned in the chat room about the key. The keys are the most important part of this. That is how we describe The public key infrastructure, it's in the name. It's the public key infrastructure. And so these keys become extremely important in understanding public key, private key, and how these keys are used. Are they asymmetric keys? Are they symmetric keys? Are they public keys? Are they private keys? These are the terms we will use constantly when working not only with this encryption technology, but doing things day to day as a security professional. Things like setting up keys in a firewall or being able to set up keys for authentication. Those are important considerations as well. Make sure you're familiar with those, being able to have those. This is one that you should do. So folks this is one where absolutely the key metaphor works. It's not a mailbox, it's a key. This is absolutely what we should be doing. Let's see how you did with this one. So let's see if we click our button. We're a little torn on this one. So would we use our private key to digitally sign the document? 45% said that's what Robert should do. 32% of you said Robert should use his private key and Alicia's public key to create a shared symmetric key. 13% of you said to use Alicia's public key to digitally sign the document. 8% said Robert should use his public key to digitally sign the document. Only 2% of you say to use Alicia's private key to digitally sign the document. So that's the way when you're starting to think about this, how you would use it. This isn't about the delivery process. This is about us writing the letter. And that's why the key is so important. That's why the mailbox metaphor kind of falls apart on this one. As we're writing the letter, how are we going to be sure that it gets to Alicia and nothing gets changed? That's the real question. Has nothing to do with how we're sending it from one side to the other, has nothing to do with what mailbox we put it into. It has to do with how can Alicia read this letter and know that nothing has changed on it, regardless of how the letter got to her, regardless of how it was delivered to her. That was the important part about this particular one. So let's see how the answer would be here. Let's see how we would approach this problem. The answer that you should be thinking in your head is that this is a situation that you need some type of verification, not only that we received this letter and it's exactly the way it was originally written, but we could also even verify that it really did come from Robert. So we're looking for some way to provide integrity, so we know nothing was changed, and we need non-repudiation, which means that we are absolutely sure that Robert wrote this. Those are the two things we're looking for, and the way that you would get those things is with a digital signature. We are not looking for, folks in the chat room, trying to figure this one out, trying to put all the pieces together on this one. The thing you're looking for is you should automatically be thinking this question, digital signature. That's what Robert needs to do. So the way that you would do this is, let's take a look at the situation we have. We're going to reverse the names here. Let's see, Alice is sending something to Bob. So she's going to send Bob a message saying, hey, Bob, you're hired. She's got this message all written out, being able to do this. So Alice wants to send this to Bob, and she doesn't want anybody to modify this. Maybe she's going to put, here's how much money you're going to make. Here's the offer, a financial offer we're going to make. She wants to be sure nothing happens to this as it's going to Bob. So she's going to hash this message and create some hash of that plain text. Now, obviously, just adding a hash of the plain text can provide some type of verification that indeed it's the same information, but anybody could take the plain text, modify it, and make their own hash. That doesn't work. So we want to find some way to make the hash even more secure. And the way you do that is you encrypt the hash. And you would use a private key, your private key, to be able to digitally sign. Now, this makes sense when you start thinking about it. If I want to sign a letter, I want to be sure that everybody knows I'm the one signing it. Well, what thing is unique to me that nobody else has? My private key. So that's exactly what Alice is going to do, is use her private key to encrypt the hash. So now you've got a hash that's encrypted by you. Nobody else has a hash that could be encrypted with your private key because you're the only one that has your private key. And you combine those things together and you create a digital signature. So you would now take that letter that says, hey, Bob, you're hired, stick the digital signature on the bottom, just like a physical signature you would sign on the bottom. So your letter doesn't have to be encrypted. It can be, but in this example, it's not. It's in plain text. But you'll notice the digital signature is sent along with that. In fact, if you were to get a continuing education unit email from me, you'll notice the email is in the clear. You can read everything in the email, but you'll notice there's an attachment there, and the attachment is the digital signature. Well, that's great. So how does Bob now really confirm this was the letter that Alice sent? Well, Bob will, of course, receive the message in the clear. This looks great. We've got the digital signature. Bob receives this and goes, great. Now let's make sure that this came from Alice and nothing changed inside of this message. We're going to grab Alice's public key because that is something that everybody has access to. Everybody has access to Alice's public key. It's a public key. By definition, it's public. Everybody should have access to it. We know that Alice digitally signed it with her private key because that's the way digital signatures work. So to be able to reverse that, we use the other half of the key, the public side of it. And we will decrypt the digital signature, which gets us back to the original hash. Now all Bob has to do is run his own hash of that same email message and go, well, let's try. I'm going to hash this myself and get a hash out of it. Here's the hash I got. Now, does my hash match the one that showed up that Alice sent me? Yes, it does. So therefore, nothing changed with this message. Or I do the comparison and realize, wait a second, that hash is different. Something changed with this message somewhere along the way. I can't trust the contents of this message. That's the beauty of a digital signature. We didn't have to transfer any other keys between each other. We didn't have to create any fancy algorithms. We simply used the built-in functionality of the public keys and private keys to be able to create the digital signature and then verify the integrity and the non-repudiation of that digital signature, which means that the best way to do this is Robert should use his private key to digitally sign the document. He will then create a hash. It will then encrypt the hash, and that, by definition, is the private key. If you answered A, use his private key to digitally sign the document, that is the correct answer. 47% of you got that one right. Now, 31%, almost a third of you said, no, we should use his private key and Alicia's public key and create a shared symmetric key, which is pretty useful if you're planning to exchange real-time encrypted communication between each other. In fact, as many of you were mentioning in the chat room, hey, that sounds like Diffie-Hellman. That's exactly what that is. That's the Diffie-Hellman key exchange algorithm. And Diffie-Hellman, of course, very useful to be able to create these symmetric keys without having to send the symmetric key across the network. That's the real secret and the beauty and the elegance of Diffie-Hellman. But of course, that doesn't help us with the integrity and the non-repudiation we were looking for from this particular question. It just creates a key. Well, great, I got a symmetric key now. What do I do with this? That's not helping me very much. So what we were really looking for is a digital signature. We've got Alicia's public key to digitally sign the document. Using her public key to sign it doesn't help very much because everybody has the public key. Everybody has Alicia's public key. Anybody could create a letter, sign it with Alicia's public key, and send it to Alicia. She could then, of course, use her private key on the other side to verify, but anybody could create that one. So that doesn't work. That's not very useful at all. That's not secure in the least. Everybody has the public key. It doesn't work for me. Robert could use his public key to digitally sign the document. Great. So when Alicia gets that, she needs to use Robert's private key to check. Wait, she doesn't have Robert's private key. Nobody has Robert's private key but Robert. So that doesn't work either. And lastly, use Alicia's private key to digitally sign the document. Robert, of course, again, doesn't have Alicia's private key. It's a private key. Only Alicia has access to her private key. For all of the different options here, only one works to be able to do this, and that's option A. Use the private key to digitally sign the document. If you answered A, 47% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, if you're watching this for continuing education unit credit, you can follow these instructions. You must follow these instructions to be able to earn your CEU. What you would do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link. It's really contact me. It's going to send me a note. Then that Contact Us will bring up a form. It will ask for your name. Put your name in there. It'll ask for your email. Put your email in there because I got to send this back to you using that email address. It'll ask for a subject line. And if you could put there that this is the August 2019 Security Plus Study Group, and then somewhere in that, in the body, you're able to put any message you would like to send me, because this is coming directly to me. You can put any message you would like in there, but in there very clearly and very plainly, please, perhaps on its own line, let's put a secret word in there. And the secret word for this month is symmetric key. Boy, I twisted that one around on you, didn't I? Symmetric key is our private special code word of the month. Private key. No, symmetric key. Symmetric key will be the one we use. Didn't want to put the one that was the answer. That made too much sense. We want to do symmetric key. That'll throw some folks off. It's already throwing folks off. So hopefully I haven't thrown you off too much. Follow those instructions. Make sure you follow those instructions. I have a process on my side where I verify the information is correct, and then I hit a button and there's an automation that takes place. An automation that takes place, and it creates the email that's sent back to you. So make sure you put it in that format. Make sure you follow that process. It puts it in the correct format for me to be able to have that there. So make sure you have those available there. Your secret word there is symmetric key. Put that in there and I'll be able to get those to you. I have now gone through all of my CEUs for the month. I had nothing in my mailbox waiting for me. It usually takes me about a week to get these back to you. So that's one where if you're in the process of figuring this out, wondering where is the response from Professor Messer, give me about a week, sometimes longer. Sometimes I need to get with the program and get that one better and faster turnaround for you. I'm working on that piece. Now that I have this automated system that I've created, it goes pretty quick. So I'll try to stay up to date with those. Well, I know we had that little glitch in the middle of the study group, so let's do another question. So we'll go into overtime here. The next question on our list asks, let me change it on your side as well. It asks, each time a user starts their browser, a pop-up window appears with a promotion for a local restaurant. Which of the following would best describe this scenario? Each time a user starts the browser, a pop-up window appears with a promotion for a local restaurant. Which of the following would best describe this scenario? Is that a worm? Is it a keylogger? Is it a rat? Is it adware? Is it logic bomb? Your 5 options: a worm, a keylogger, a rat, adware, or logic bomb. It's ratatouille. It's not ratatouille. An R-A-T. That isn't a rat, isn't it? And maybe it is time for a fresh install. Maybe it's time to take that backup we created in the previous question and restore this known good backup to our system if we're getting promotions for local restaurants. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answers. See if you happen to know what that one is. There's obviously a large number of these types of situations you would run into. I don't want to give too much away for this question, but there's a number of them, and you have to know what the differences are between all of these different types of vulnerabilities or attack types. So make sure you're familiar with those. Each time a user starts their browser, a pop-up window appears with a promotion for a local restaurant. Which of the following would best describe this scenario? Let's step through those and see how we did with this one. I think that was a gimme. We've all had this problem, haven't we? 98% of us say, yep, that's adware. And although it's one that we're very, very familiar with because we're users of our systems and we run into these problems a lot, we do have to know the differences between what these types of vulnerabilities or attack types are and the nuances between them. So make sure you're familiar, for instance, with the differences between adware and spyware, which have a similar name, but there's very different configurations, different ways that those particular attacks take place. Make sure you're familiar with all of those. This is one where there are probably, how many are there? Probably 11, 12, 15 different attack types there in that first section. These are coming directly from, on the adware side, directly from these. And the one that here for adware is from section 1.1. The video is specifically adware and spyware, where we not only have the adware piece, but the spyware and the others are in there too. That would be a very good way to step through and make sure you're familiar with all of those, because you will run into those on your exam. Everything we did today, for instance, especially that section 1.1 here, it is for all of those. This is actually for the different version of this, but I have the exam objectives here. The exam objectives tell you everything you need to know on the exam. Some of you have sent me notes before and have said, I'm ready to take the exam, but I'm not really sure what I might be asked. I'm not sure how that's possible, though, because CompTIA tells you everything you have to know on the exam. So this list of exam objectives you can find at professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link there. We'll take you over to the CompTIA website where you can download the latest version of those. Very important that you get your hands on those. We do another one of these real-time Q&A study groups every month. So I do a Security Plus study group every month. If we're still here after the storm, we'll be here back on September 25th for Security Plus. And if you are watching this as a replay, it's well after September 25th. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar to do that. Now, in the first part of the September, the first week of September, there are no study groups. We have Labor Day here in the United States that week. We have an A+ study group on the 10th and the 12th. We have a Network Plus study group on the 18th. So usually sometime during a week, you can always check in. We're always doing some type of live event here, or relatively live. As long as YouTube stays up and running, we're relatively live, having everything work, and that way you can do this. But stick around. We've got plenty more. I'm going to turn this around so that you can ask me questions for the next section of this in our after show. But if some of you I know have to bug out after the first hour, that's fine too. Make sure you check out the Security Plus, all of the downloadable capabilities of the Security Plus and this course notes at professormesser.com/securitycn. Of course, all those social links that we talked about with /YouTube, /Twitter, /Instagram, /Facebook. Just go to professormesser.com/thething, and you can absolutely find out more about what we are doing here and what's going on. And if the hurricane blows us completely away, you never know what's going to happen. Stick around for the next hour. We've got plenty more to go through. Thanks for joining us, though, in this first hour. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Let's see if I can get the phone line set up. All right. Thanks for hanging in there from the YouTube dropping out suddenly and then suddenly coming back. I'm not sure what was going on with poor YouTube, but we will find out more about that. It's stayed up and running the whole time. That doesn't happen. I don't know that that's ever happened in the years that we've done live streams. So it's remarkable that we ran into that this time. But, you know, it's inevitable, right? It's going to happen for those eventually. We're going to run into something like that whenever we get that. Let me get the phone lines up and running for those of you asking about it. I will get these shows going. It takes me a second on this side to get the show started. Then I will give you information on how you can call in to talk to me. I'm going to get this phone line up, and then I will do all of those pieces. Let me start up this on because I call into my own show. Oddly enough, I go into the Skype here, and then it says, thank you. And I type in my things on this side, and then it says,
enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Again, that's redundant. And I type in my 6-digit PIN number, just like the lady said.
Welcome.
Well, there. So I am now into my phone lines, which means you can call into the phone lines as well. This number in the continental U.S. is 855-785-RJ45. That is a phone line that is toll-free, so you will pay nothing for that. So it's 855-785-7545. Be sure to fill that out. Now, if you're outside the United States, you can still call for free. So you can go to +1 at the beginning if you go into Skype, +1 855-785-7545. Put all that in, and Skype will be able to send that off to you. So that's a good way to do it. It doesn't cost anything on Skype. No Skype minutes required. That's kind of nice to have that there. So feel free to go through this piece as well to get all of those there. We've got some calls that are going in. Also, if you don't want to call in, who does anything by voice anymore? Well, some of you do, like me. But if you'd like to answer some questions or ask some questions in the chat room, you go to professormesser.com/live. There's a chat right there, and we can go through this piece. This is folks in the chat room. Some of you haven't been here in a while. You see, I've got a new camera. Yes, this is a new camera here. This is the Lumix GH5S. This is one that I'm pretty happy with on the Panasonic, isn't it? So that's one we readjusted the studio for 4K earlier in the year, and that whole adjustment meant I had to get a 4K camera, and so that's what this is. It's a much better view. Plus, we are now streaming at 1080p, which is a higher resolution stream than we used to do as well. So all that happened at the same time. We went from 720p to 1080. If the wrinkles start showing up, I'm going to go back to 720. It's an easy facelift. You just go to a lower resolution. But for now, we're going to do 1080p. It'll work just fine. So to have all of those pieces there, such a challenge to make that happen. Let's go to the phone lines. I'm going to go into the phone lines and commiserate with my friends here in Florida. It's the 561 area code down in South Florida. Thank you for calling. Caller, which name we're calling from?
Hi, Professor Messer. This is Ed calling from Miami Lakes.
Welcome, Ed. How are things in Miami Lakes?
Well, great. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Thanks for calling again. Good to hear from you. What can we do for you?
Well, I ran across something interesting today related to cybersecurity, and I knew that it's a new technology. I just wanted to know what you knew about it. It was called software-defined perimeter.
We're all using the software-defined terms these days. I've not seen anybody. This must be a marketing thing from somebody new. Sounds like an interesting technology. What was it based around?
Well, it's supposed to replace VPNs.
I like that.
Yeah, I got it off of a website called Tech Target.
Yep, Tech Target's pretty good with getting out the marketing content. That sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, so anyways, this new technology, software-defined perimeter, like I say, it's supposed to replace VPNs, but it's a process of authentication and access control, where the authentication takes place with, authenticating the user plus the device that is trying to connect to a resource. And then the access control is only giving access to a particular item that they're requesting and nothing more, and everything else is obfuscated. And then the access is time-based, so it's a limited amount of time. So apparently there's some kind of new technology that's supposed to really streamline cybersecurity for network engineers and such. I just wonder if you knew anything about it.
It's less of new technology and more of somebody taking advantage of technology that already exists. For those of you that have had to deal with the VPN administration, it's such a tight little configuration. If anybody is in a network where there are restrictions on data flows, if there's a firewall in the way, if they're on a network that is blocking VPN technology, then the whole thing just falls apart. It doesn't work very well. But we have all of these technologies that we have out in the world that we have been using, especially a whole set of technologies with authentication. A lot of them you learn on the Security Plus when you're dealing with all of those different tech, especially LDAP technologies, being able to bring that into a federated view. We're getting so much better with handling authentications across multiple platforms. You can put it all in the cloud. So now we're not limited by a geography. There's huge benefits there. So the industry, I think, is probably ready for a shift from traditional VPN to something that's a little more flexible. One of the challenges with something like the SDP, the software-defined perimeter, though, is it's just like everything else in the cloud, it adds additional complexity. Now, they're telling us it won't, but it does. And so now, can we make this do what we want to do by including all those new technologies, or are we just making this harder on ourselves? So I guess we'll find out as people keep working on these technologies. Is it going to be another one of these that sounds good that never gets traction? Or will there be some startups out there that finally do something with this, get bought by Cisco, and now everybody uses it? I think that's kind of how things have gone in the past. Maybe that is what's going to happen this time too. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I was wondering, what the deployment was on this new technology and how it was working.
I've not heard anybody using it yet. I've heard a lot of people talking about how it works and a lot of companies touting how great it is, but haven't yet heard anyone use. I'd love to get some stories from folks that are using it. It'd be interesting to know if they were able to take advantage of this, because being able to have something secure that works and gives the VPN access, that would be fantastic.
Well, thanks for taking my call, and hopefully we'll make it through the storm okay.
Fingers crossed. Best of luck, Ed. That's whenever I start trying to figure out how am I going to take what I have now and make it better. We've done this constantly in our industry, in taking these technologies and building on them or making something new. Sometimes it takes off. Next generation firewalls was a technology that when it came along, blew up more than 10 years ago now, 14 years ago, hit the market and suddenly became a phenomenon. It was the right technology at the right time that really delivered on what it said. But we've had other technologies in our industry. I look at ATM, asynchronous transfer mode, not automatic teller machine, which a technology that did stick around. The asynchronous transfer mode was supposed to be our new network, and it would be able to work everywhere with any protocols and transmit any type of data, and it disappeared completely, didn't it? So you never know. Whenever you hear something new, you never know exactly how that's going to turn out. We'll have to see how it does. Let's go back to the phones, up to Georgia. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Are you there, caller? Are you muted? There you are. Hi. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Sagar.
Thanks for calling in. What can we do for you?
I'm studying in University of Illinois. I'm doing my master's in computer science.
Nice.
And so my question is that I'm looking forward to have a career in this cybersecurity. So right now I'm thinking of getting a certification of this Security Plus, and I'm going through your videos and I'm studying that. So after I study and after I get that certification, what would be the best thing what would be the best advice you will give me to apply for the jobs in cybersecurity?
It's a tough one. Cybersecurity jobs, first, the term cybersecurity is a very broad term that doesn't specifically talk about any specific security thing. We're sort of a buzzword we use today to describe the very broad security landscape. Of course, the security is very specific. There are jobs that deal with how to make applications more secure. There's jobs that are focused on making databases more secure. There's other jobs that focus on general IT security. So first thing you probably will want to do is figure out which part of those you want to be able to figure out which one of those you want to focus on. For example, a lot of people go through computer science and they're very focused on the programming side. Well, those are security jobs that are technically cybersecurity jobs, but they're very focused in programming. Whereas somebody who's in IT security is focused on maintaining firewalls, configuring VPNs, getting the PKI infrastructures up and running, managing the certificate authorities. It's a different kind of job where it's not a programming job, but it's very focused on the operational side of security for the organization. So those are things you have to figure out first, what type of security you want to do. Secondly, there are not a lot of entry-level positions in security. This is something you'll find very quickly, is that there's a lot of entry-level positions for help desk. There are some entry-level positions in networking. There are some entry-level positions in security, but it's not a common entry point into IT or into technology in general. So I tell people that if you want to get into security, I highly recommend you move up the ranks through some other type of technology in IT. For example, if you want to be in IT security, learn everything you can about networking. Coming from someone who worked in IT security, I can tell you that a huge part of IT security, the foundation of it, is all about networking. You effectively have to become an expert in networking before you can ever implement these security technologies. So that's a good example I give of people. If you're wanting to get into security, learn about the foundational core of what you're trying to get into, and then it will be relatively easy to layer the security piece right on top of that. Hopefully, does that make sense?
Oh, sure. Thank you for your valuable time, sir.
I appreciate your call. Thank you. That's probably the biggest challenge I see, that I see a lot of degrees, online classes, and a lot of things focused on cybersecurity. But I think a lot of people would love to get right out of school and jump right into security. But the employers aren't hiring people for security. Security is a relatively complex environment. It's not something you're able to jump into without a foundational experience that you could apply to, whether it's understanding everything there is about operating systems. I can move into security from there. Understanding everything there is to know about networking, I can move into security from there. Everything to know about databases and how they work, there's a move into security from there. There's a normal move up the ladder into from those technologies into security. And I think people need to think about what those stepping stones are going to be and then figure out a path to get there. Probably the best thing you can do is to go out to the online job posting sites and start collecting data. Make a spreadsheet. See what types of jobs are available in your area. See what they're asking for, given your experience and your qualifications. That's going to be the best determination on what your next step is going to be and what type of certifications and knowledge you need to be able to get into those jobs. Let's go back to the phones. We're going to go to the 661 area code in California. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor. I'm calling from Central India.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, let me thank you very much. I cleared my CompTIA Security Plus exam last month, all thanks to your Security Plus videos and course information and the advice that you gave while I was preparing. Secondly, my question is with regards to that I have now cleared the exam. I'm thinking of advancing my career in cloud security. So what would you recommend? About the next steps for the preparation for another certification or gaining more experience in cloud security jobs.
What a great place to move in. First, congratulations on your Security Plus. That is a great accomplishment. Congratulations on passing that exam. Cloud security is huge right now. Just cloud technologies in general is extremely huge right now. I think one of the best things you can do if you're interested in getting into cloud security is to learn as much as you can about the administration and the orchestration of the cloud. This is not something that comes naturally, because the cloud is a very complex place, especially when you start getting into containerization technologies, understanding exactly how to automate those technologies and orchestrate those. There is a scripting aspect to it that you do need to become very familiar with, so that these The ability to build out these services and build out this infrastructure in the cloud is one that can be automated when you're nowhere around. You don't need a human being. When the cloud automatically realizes it needs more capacity, it simply starts building it up. And when it doesn't need as much, it simply tears them down automatically. But you're the one who has to create that orchestration. You're the one who has to create the scripts and be able to make that happen. Once you understand that process, now you can think about how to secure it. Do you provide some segmentation of those networks? Do you begin to integrate virtual firewalls within these technologies, virtual intrusion prevention? Where would those go? How would you orchestrate them? How would you implement them? Those are layered into the same pieces. So when I talk about building on the foundation, that's a very good example. Get a very good foundation on how to make the cloud work for you, and then it should be relatively easy to layer on top of that how to make the cloud more secure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to let you know, I have started with the Microsoft Azure training course that are available on the Microsoft Azure website. So I think that might help me a bit to understand the basics of cloud computing, and later on I can build on top of that to gain more experience in cloud security, if that's correct.
I think you're spot on. I think that's a great direction to go. That'll be your first foray into the cloud side. Microsoft has an extremely strong cloud strategy, and then you'll be able to apply the exact same ideas to the other cloud providers out there as well. Even though it won't be the same terms they use, it will still be the same methodologies, and it'll be very easy to move from one to the other once you understand the fundamentals. I think you got a great strategy.
Thanks a lot, and thank you again for providing the continuous education. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's and congratulations on your Security Plus. That's always good to have too. It's always good to have the someone provide when you're taking those exams and get that final exam sheet that says, yep, you passed. Okay, something must have soaked in. So I must have learned something in that process. And it was something that I was talking with someone earlier this week, and I was saying we often forget that the certification process, even though we often use the certification process to get a job or get a better job, it actually teaches us something in the meantime. So anytime you can take and start learning from these other companies, if you want to go into cloud, see what Amazon has on their cloud certification, see what Microsoft has on their cloud certification. Start pulling these things in and start learning from that. It will serve you well as you get into those technologies. Let's go back to the phones. Hurricane Watch, thanks for calling. 305 area code. Well, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Riquette. I'm calling from Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. My phone call telling me here is way off. So thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
No, I'm from Miami.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I wanted to ask because right now I'm scheduled to take the Security Plus on the 7th of September, but I work in compliance, specifically vendor risk, and I'm doing this test because I see that most of what I'm reviewing is information security, questions and topics. Have you seen or heard of anyone basically just melding what is risk management and IT security in a career path?
Absolutely. There's certainly places for this. I see a lot of it being used at the large consulting firms. So you go to it's not the big 8 anymore. It's not even the big 6 anymore, is it? But the large consulting firms that are going into the huge organizations, a lot of what they do is risk management, and a lot of the risk management they do is on the IT side. So they have consultants that all they do is go from large organization to large organization to large organization to determine what they're doing with their platforms now, what the risk is of those particular organizations and the sections that they happen to be in, and find ways to minimize or mitigate the risks that are currently in place. There's a big section, a big component of this for IT security. It's a section of security we don't often think about because it's a little bit of a higher level thought process. You're not down at the bits and bytes levels of security. You're not developing the next security technologies. You're instead determining how can we properly implement these technologies to be able to really provide security for an organization. Sometimes that's the hardest part. It's easy to buy a bunch of technologies. The hard part is figuring out, how do I use these technologies to make me more secure? And if you're working for a company, it's a manufacturing company, you're working for a transportation company, you're working for an insurance company, they have no idea how to do this. As we can plainly see with the exploits and people's private information, every week we're getting new stories of these enormous data breaches. It's a huge section. Companies can save an enormous amount of money by bringing in the consultants to be able to do that, and risk management's a huge part of that.
Right. You were talking about KPMG, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, and PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Absolutely. Those are the ones I see the most doing it. There are smaller organizations that are very niche to be able to do that, but those are the ones the big companies bring in, and those are probably the ones you have the best opportunities to get a job performing that particular function, because that's where the enormous Fortune 100s, Fortune 500s of the world, that's who they go to get those questions answered.
Excellent. Let me see. Oh, one last question. Do you have any recommendations for a risk certification?
I don't. That's not a section of the world I get into very often, but there are some out there. There are not a lot of them. It tends to be more experience and then implementation from what I'm seeing. But there are a few. I've not gotten into the details of them to be able to recommend one way or the other. But if you stick with some of the larger organizations and what they are doing, you go to the SANS, the Gartners, and some of the other larger risk management side of it, I think you'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That's always good when you start thinking that way. And another good example from that call we had earlier is that security is broad. It's huge. There is opportunities at every level. You don't have to be a programmer. You may not even want to get into IT security. You may want to get into more of the risk management side of things. Huge opportunities, no matter what you're most interested in doing. Let's quickly go back to the phones. I'm going to try to make it a little cooler in here so I can make it through this section. We're going to head off to Texas. Thank you for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller. Are you on? There you are. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Yeah, hi. Am I on?
You are on.
Oh, yeah. My name is Olu. I'm from Houston, Texas.
Hello, Olu. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for picking up my call. I've been trying to reach you for some time now, and, pretty happy I was able to get through.
Glad it worked out. What can we do for you?
So, I'm trying to get the Security Plus certification exam done, and I've been watching your videos and some other documentation I've been reading on for like 2 months now, and my wife is giving me 4 weeks to get my exam done. She want me to set a time frame, so that way, I have it coming up and I'm pressured into getting it done. As opposed to just starting, endlessly, So
that's not an invalid strategy. A lot of people will do this on their exams, by the way, is they'll set an exam date to take the exam, knowing that they've got to work towards that date. That's sort of their drop dead date. Correct. To have that happen. Of course, for those of you planning to do that, I think it's a 48 hours before the exam. Maybe it's 24. You can change your exam date. So it's not completely locked in, but it does give you that sense of urgency, and nothing gives you a sense of urgency more than your wife. So I feel you there.
Exactly. She's really on me for that. So that's my first question. And my second question is, after taking this Security Plus exam, we supposed to have like a license number. Is it kind of like published out there for recruiters to find you, or you still gotta keep applying for jobs like regular?
The certification you get, you can have employers validate that you have earned that certification, there's a validation page on the CompTIA website, or it's the Pearson VUE website, where you can give an employer your license number, your certification number, or give them information about yourself. They can plug it in and see if you indeed have that particular certification. You can also put in a certification and push out the certification credentials to a third party so that they can easily find it by clicking through. That certification validation isn't proactive. It's not like you earn the certification and suddenly they tell the world that you have it. It's still up to you to do the legwork. You're the one who still has to tell people that you have it and make sure that they're aware that those credentials are something that you've earned.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. I do really want to appreciate everything that you do here, Professor Messer. It's been really grateful. I have some of my friends that I've been inviting them into this study group.
Great.
And they're really loving everything. So, yeah, thank you so much for what you're doing.
Fantastic.
And have a good day.
Best of luck, and best of luck to your wife.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll tell her that.
Bye-bye. That's the most important part, isn't it? Make sure with a happy wife, happy life. Make sure becomes important. We often forget. We're so busy studying for these exams that we don't want to neglect whatever else is going on in our lives. So make sure you don't do that either. 719 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Adam. I'm calling from the Czech Republic.
Hello, Adam. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you today?
I just wanted to thank you for those courses you pull out. I always thought that study group was just for select 20 that you sit around the table with. But now that I know that it's free and online, I've been telling everybody.
I like doing them. It's a great opportunity, I think, to at least get a conversation going. And I like having me asking questions, but I also like having the questions come the other direction too.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just wanted to, you talked about the security jobs, no entry jobs in security. I actually was lucky because I got a security analyst job last month, and it was all thanks to your videos and the OSWP exam.
There's not a lot of those out there, so that's fantastic. And you say you took the OWASP and passed that one too?
No. I just did the OSWP, Offensive Security Workforce Professional. So, and when I went to the interview, they just looked at my resume and said, "Oh, you've got the OSWP? Nice," and scratched out half the questions they had for me.
We don't have to start with the basics anymore. Let's jump into the real heavy stuff and go there. Yeah. That's a great opportunity. So was your focus on penetration testing? Is there a particular aspect of that you have focused on, or what is this particular position focused on?
Well, currently I'm blue team mainly. Okay. So I do analysis of threats. I do Splunk, but there's a huge opportunity to pivot to red team. So that's what I'm working on now. And the first step is getting my Security Plus, and then I'll get some more certs. It's like Pokemon. I'm gonna catch them all.
That's right. And that's kind of the way it works in security too, is it's never any one thing. You may find, and this is absolutely the case with security, and it's really what happened with me, is I focused on firewalls. That's all I did, was focused, not all I did, but my final focus and my final corporate job that I had was on firewalls. Everything I did was focuses on everything that touches this firewall. And it's remarkable how you can get a very specific and very tight focus on a single technology and be able to use that as a career. And it's one of the things that when you get into security and when you get into the higher levels of IT becomes pretty obvious is you can become an expert in this very specific thing. Suddenly you have skills that everybody would like to get their hands on. So find that thing. You've got a great opportunity now that you're in sort of in the middle of the pond. Now you can start trying different things. See which thing is most exciting to you. You will find things you didn't even realize existed, and that might appeal to you. So it's a great time to figure out what you want to do next. And it sounds like it's a great job to do that in.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. We have people hacking cars and stuff, so I'm looking forward to learning everything there is about those people.
Yeah, that's not frightening at all. Good luck. I hope you were able to figure out the details of that and stop it before it hits my car. Thanks a lot for calling.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
That's all.
Here.
That's one of those things. Whenever I start getting into security and the aspects of security, you start to see this at some of the trade shows and some of the yearly events that you would go to, like Black Hat, is the extensions of security into our normal lives. And that's certainly one that you will run into. It's in your house now. It's as I was talking to my remote control yesterday, and I told Mrs. Professor Messer, I love that I can talk to my remote control, and I hate that I can talk to my remote control. I'm just not happy with it, and I'm ecstatic. So it's one of those odd things with it. How do we keep it secure? Let's find out. Let's go to 951. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, hello, Professor. My name is Luis. I'm calling from Long Beach.
Oh, hello, Luis. Hopefully you are ready for a hurricane.
Oh, yes. Yes.
What can we do for you today?
Well, Professor, I would just like to say thank you. Your videos and course notes are extremely helpful. They are definitely a catalyst for understanding core concepts in IT.
Great.
And I use your course notes regularly, like every day.
Great to hear it. Thank you so much. And happy to do it. Now, I've said this in other study groups too, is that I'm doing kind of the easy part. I make the courses. You're the guys who have to actually do the hard part and memorize what's there. So well done.
Yeah. Well, today I was just calling more about soft skills because I was able to get a job because of you a long time ago. But the other day I was using Microsoft Azure Cloud, and I spun up a Windows Server 2016 just as a hobby at work. And I was using the file server resource manager to create storage reports, like least recently accessed files, most accessed files, files by owner.
Nice.
I scheduled it to run weekly on Sunday nights, and to save the reports in an HTML file. And then I host a report on a headless CMS so that my coworkers can access the report through their browser. And one of my coworkers pulled me to the side, and he told me that he sometimes felt imposter syndrome. And I was surprised, and I told him that I felt the same way.
Yeah.
that when I watch him work, I feel lost. And I told him that there's so much information that I was glad that I work in a team, and I'm glad I can have somebody just roll their chair over to my desk if I have a question.
It's one of the things I think a lot of us don't realize until we get into the industry is that this stuff's really complicated. This stuff is incredibly complex, and there's no possible way you or anyone else will ever know everything they need to know about everything that they will ever touch with technology. It's just functionally, logistically, physically impossible for someone to know that. And so you're constantly going through these situations where you're on a project, you've been tasked with a thing, and you say, you need to get that done. And you have no idea how you're going to accomplish that particular thing. Happens all the time. In fact, it should be kind of normal. I've often said in these study groups that if you're ever in a job and you know everything you need to know to get that job done, you are the pro at the thing you're working on. You know every answer for everything that is ever put in front of you, then you're in the wrong job. You should be already at the next thing. You should be constantly jumping off a cliff. This should constantly be a situation where you're completely unknown how to accomplish these things. And the fact that you're in a group right now and a team that you're able to make that happen is exactly how this is supposed to work. On the last position I had with a third party in a corporation was as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall. I would walk into a new client. I've never seen them in my life. I've never talked to them. I said, here's a box that does a thing. And then they start asking questions. Does it do this thing? Can it do this other thing? We have this specialized thing. Can it handle that? And you have to be able to answer those questions. And often my answer was, I don't know, but I will find out. And I knew who to call. You have that team available to be able to help with that. But the thing that we often forget in our industry is it's perfectly reasonable to say, I don't know. How could you possibly know everything? Now, you should, of course, have a foundation of things that you do know, but you're going to run into things every day that you have no idea what the right answer is to any of these things or whether it does it at all. And it may be a very involved answer to be able to get it. Perfectly normal. This idea is of imposter syndrome, which was the conversation earlier. The term that you used that's the term we often use to say I'm in a job and I worry that I'm the imposter, that I'm the idiot here that has no clue what's going on, which in reality we all do. One of the best things I ever figured out how to do, Luis, is I would go to my training classes, and in these training classes, they're teaching you about how to use these technologies. I got to where I would sit in the front, and when I really didn't understand something, I would stop the class. I'd hold my hand up and go, hold on, I'm an idiot because I'm not following you there. Step through that piece again. And what I found is that other people in the class with me also weren't following, but they didn't want to say anything. And what I found out is the more I stopped and said, wait, let's go through that again so I get it, it allowed everybody to take a step back. We all understood the topics better. And I found that I was learning better by being the dummy in class. I didn't mind being the dummy to be able to have that happen. So that's one where you should be able to have that happen to you. It's okay to be the dummy as long as you're smart enough to go find the answer. And that's the real important part. Don't ever be satisfied with not knowing ever. You should, of course, go figure out those pieces. And you gave me a perfect example of how you were able to take all of this data, produce a document, publish it in a way that other people have access to it. That was a process you had no idea how to do until you figured it out. And now you got it. That's no problem. You want to know how to do it? I can tell you how to do it because here's how I did it. That's a great bit of knowledge to do. And it's a process you should constantly be doing in your professional career, and it should be able to take you to the next level everywhere you go. That's how we move up in this industry. That's how we become more valuable with the skills that we have, and ultimately how we can make more money and be more successful at what we do. So congratulations to you.
Yes, Professor. I think people that are starting out, trying to work in a team or trying to get as much help and ask as many questions is definitely the right thing to do. And because of you, Professor, I was able to develop good habits. You talk about using best practices in network infrastructure, and that will require less effort in securing it. And security should just be a layer of polish on top of the network. So yeah, just focusing on the network is the main takeaway I get from your lectures.
So true. So true. Congratulations and best of luck, and best of luck through the next week of storms as well.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Have a good day.
That's one of the things I often tell people. Don't be the smartest one in the room. That's the worst thing you can be. You can be the smartest one in the room. Just don't let anybody else know that. The more you can act the dummy, the more you're going to learn of almost any situation, not just technical situations, but non-technical situations as well. It's remarkable how much you learn when you're just kind of sitting there soaking in what's there. And certainly don't be the know-it-all. That's never a good situation to be in with those as you're going through it. We've had some callers holding for an awful long time. Let me get to these calls as we go. The 240 area code. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Professor Master, this is Ray from Maryland.
Hello, Ray. Thanks for calling in. What can we do for you?
Well, this is the third time I talked to you. I'm at a quandary here. I've taken the Security Plus 4 times. I've gotten better at each time I've taken it. But the last 2 times, I'm at 672. I can't get past 672. However, I'm taking the AWS Architect, and I love it. And while going through that, the Security Plus information is meshing all together even better. So my question to you, should I just pause on Security Plus and go with the AWS Architect, which I love, and employers want that skill set badly, and then just go back to Security Plus later?
The real answer whenever anybody wants to know what certification do I do next or what is my next step going to be is for me to always turn it around and say, well, what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? What is your next step? And that kind of thing. The way that you talk about AWS is it reminds me a lot of when I first got into networking. I was working with the Windows operating system. I was working with client computers. I was working with some servers at the time on the network, but I didn't know anything about anything network related. And then one day somebody brought in a protocol analyzer. It was the sniffer. Back then that was a very specialized piece of equipment. There was no free software you could download to see packets going over the network. They plugged it into the network, and suddenly I understood what was going on. Suddenly there was a connection there that I could see, wait a second, this network thing is crazy. Let me learn everything I could possibly learn about what's going on in the network. And there was an excitement and a passion. And so it was very, very interesting to me. And suddenly the Microsoft operating system and those things that I had spent time on, I wanted to change focus a little bit. And it made sense for me at the time to do that. And I tried to learn and become an expert in everything I could related to the network. And that actually worked out. It ultimately took me to a point where I was working for Network General, the company that made the sniffer. I mean, that's the process that took me through. So it was a smart move for me to follow what interested me, because ultimately that's what drove me to do more in the industry. I highly recommend, and I've told people often in these study groups, find the thing that really interests you, because that's what's going to move you along. You don't have to do it your entire career. I moved from Network General, moved into more of a security role. So you'll find that the river will take you wherever it will. You sometimes don't have control of that. Sometimes you do. But as long as it's something that you enjoy, it makes it so much better for the entire journey. So if you're in a situation where you've tried Security Plus, maybe Security Plus, it's the wrong time for you. Maybe you need more of the foundation underneath that you can then apply to some of these crazy thoughts and ideas about security that are contained in Security Plus. Maybe AWS is that foundation and you can focus on that piece. It's up to what the employers are looking for next. If you are in an area of the country where, and it looks like you are, where there's a huge security emphasis, maybe that's something that's a little more important than in other parts of the country. But as you just mentioned, those AWS certifications and doing more with the Amazon cloud is every employer wants their hands on those too. It's huge. So in your particular situation, you almost can't make a wrong move there. And if AWS is something that you're really into and you find it's really exciting to you and you're good at it, that might be your in that later on you can leverage to do other things like get back into the security side.
Wow. Okay. Well, because I don't want to take all the time, but we've talked before. I've been doing this for like 19 years, networking. I mean, data centers, you name it. Firewalls, routers, switches, all that. But I'm good at it, but I'm not fluent with it, so I can do it. But now I'm doing this with the AWS architecture, and I swear I love it. And then the stuff that I do know for Security Plus, which I know a considerable amount, because you were telling me before, Ray, you need to just work on your vocabulary. That's what's stopping you. You're missing the things, the detail stuff, and you're right about that. But with the AWS, I'm picking it up like water. It is great. So
just talking to you over the last in this phone call, it's a complete difference in how you talk about those two things. Yeah, I think if you don't move more into the Amazon side, you'll be making a big mistake.
Okay.
Best of luck, Ray.
Thank you, sir.
And keep us updated.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Good talking to you. Take care. That's always good when you find that thing. It's always good when you find it. For me, I will never forget seeing that screen on that sniffer and thinking, hold on, what is that? And then diving into it completely and going down that road. It's one of those turning points that suddenly the world makes sense. Suddenly the universe, I get it now, and I need to start doing something. I need to know everything I need to get into that. That will make it for me. And it turns out it did. Let's go back. Oh, very quickly, somebody mentioned that last call. How many times can you take the exam and not pass it? You can take it as many times as you'd like. There is a waiting time that you have to take. After your first fail, you can take the exam immediately afterwards. But every time after that, there is a waiting period. And I think it's 2 weeks. I think it's 14 business days or 14 days, calendar days, that you have to wait between. There is a guide for this. There's a policy for this on the CompTIA site if you're interested. Back to the phones, 973. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Are you there, Jersey? Talk to me. I hear you. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
Hello. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Rolando. I'm calling from the United Kingdom.
What can we do for you?
Well, I'm just calling. I'm actually from the States. I'm just here, military station here.
Okay.
And I'm calling because I would soon be applying for one of those career programs that the government offers.
Yep.
The one in particular that I'm looking into is the Onward to Opportunity. So basically, my question was, which which track do you recommend for someone like me? I'm just getting into it. I'm studying for the A+ currently. I'm pretty. I feel ready for my 1000, the first exam for the 1001, and I was just wondering which path do you recommend as far as doing something in the extremely taking advantage of the program and doing something that's very, high skilled, or something like more entry level, because the program, they offer things like CIS, they offer AWS, but I think it's kind of like the entry level for AWS is only the practitioner, the cloud practitioner one. I was just wondering what recommendations do you have as far as taking advantage of that Onward to Opportunity program?
You can't go wrong, because at this point you kind of have a blank slate, and it's an opportunity to get as much knowledge as you can about these technologies, and really be able to jump right into the workforce wherever it happens to be. A+ is a common starting point. A+ is the one where people are getting their fundamentals and learning about operating systems and hardware, at least at a lower level. And in that point, jumping off and going to other things from there. I love the idea, though, of the Amazon piece. We were just talking on the last caller and talking about how do we work that piece? How do we go through the process of understanding more about what we can do with the cloud? Obviously, an incredibly popular topic with employers and understanding, even though it's the fundamentals. The thing that a lot of people worry about is that you're taking these entry-level courses and getting these entry-level certifications. Well, of course, because you're starting out and this is the entry level. This will not be where it ends. This is never where it ends. You are always going to the next thing after this. You'll be getting a higher level certification with Microsoft, with Amazon, with Cisco, with VMware, with you pick it. You're gonna have a higher level certification that's coming and knowledge that comes along with that. What you should focus on is what do you want to do, and then work the angles from there. If a broad IT career is something that you would like to start with, learning more about servers and workstations and operating systems, then A+ is a great place to go. If you see, like our last caller, wanted to getting into the cloud and realizing, wow, this cloud stuff is really interesting to me. I need to learn as much as I can about the cloud. Maybe that's the direction you go. The advantage you have here is there's no wrong decision. The only thing you have to do is figure out what makes sense given the resources and these classes available to you, and then take as many of them as you can and take advantage of that.
Okay, I really appreciate it. I just had a little follow-on question to that, because I've actually researched the technology jobs on U.S. News, their career section.
Great.
And the one that kind of enticed me the most based on my previous experience as a teenager, just dealing with computers and different like Android phones and things like that. The one that I'm kind of interested in the most is the computer systems administrator. So I was wondering which path like would be best to prepare me for that career.
That's almost a perfect description of the things you would need to know with the A+ certification, and starting off with operating systems. So a lot of people will go with A+ to get both the hardware and the software side of things. If you skip the A+ or you want to get into something that's a little more complex, then it sounds like from the description you just gave, some of the Microsoft certifications would be a great place to go, or even a Linux related certification or some type of class on that. Learn as much as you can about those operating systems and how they use the hardware, and you'll be able to get into any data center you'd like.
Yeah, the program does offer the CompTIA Linux Plus path, so maybe that's something that I should probably get considered.
There's a huge group that handles, or a huge need for Linux knowledge. And there's some organizations, I think specifically about my cloud service provider, Rackspace, where they train you intensively with Linux, and they have Linux experts there that when I need help with my Linux servers, that's who I'm calling, and they're experts. They can make this stuff jump up and down and go through hoops, and I rely on them to do that piece. They do a great job of training them up. And it's another example of being a specialist in one particular area in a niche can really earn you a job and money that is different than other parts of IT. Just find the thing that interests you and go after it, and there's a job for it.
Okay, I see. Because my plan is just to do the A+, Network Plus on my own, and then get into kind of like a higher level track for those certifications. And just working on the A+ on my own before I start the program, Network Plus. Because also my wife, she's getting her Security Plus right now, and she wants to do more of the Security Plus side of it. And I'm thinking that I want to do more of the network side of it.
It's a good strategy. As we mentioned earlier, there's a limited number of entry-level security positions. There's many more on the networking side. And as I've also mentioned here in other places, security is a huge foundation of networking with a little bit of IT security on top of it. So if you're thinking of getting into the IT security side of things, having a very solid foundation and expertise in networking will serve you very well.
Thank you so much for your time. I actually got caught off guard. Like, this is my first time calling. I didn't realize I was actually on the line and everything, because I'm watching you on YouTube and just try to call, and I didn't expect to actually get through at all. So I'm really glad. I started following you when I got into my wife was the one that actually got me into the CompTIA certifications, because she got a job in the military as well.
Nice.
And she's, like I mentioned, taking her Security Plus like the 12th of September. So I'm planning to actually schedule my A+ for the same day and see like if we can like celebrate together.
That's great. Congratulations to both of you. You're both on the right track. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all you do.
Thanks for calling. That's a great story. That's one where you can't go wrong in that scenario. Those are the foundations. Once you get the foundations, you can jump off to everywhere. I get a little frustrated sometimes going online and having people say, why are you wasting time with these foundational certifications? Except the people that are getting the certifications are just getting into the industry. What would you expect them to do? Go straight up to the CCIE and take the lab? I'm not sure what the concept is there. You need to learn the foundations first, because then you're just going to build on them. And it's usually something you can do relatively quick. Getting an IT certification like a Network Plus, a Security Plus, or an A Plus is a 3, sometimes a 6-month investment. Not a huge time investment considering what you're getting out of that. What a great place to start. So highly recommend people focus on what do you want to do next, and just keep asking that for your entire career, and it will serve you well. Back to the phones, 208 area code. Hello, caller. Which name were you calling from? Caller.
Hello?
Hey, hello, 208. What can we do for you?
Hi, my name is John. I'm calling from Los Angeles, California.
Welcome, John.
I had to mute you on my computer so I could listen to you on my phone. So the first thing is this. I started out, I have 2 years of working experience with networking. I didn't get CCNA. For some reason, I just didn't do it. Then I had 2 years of hands-on help desk with the LA County. And I also didn't get the A+. I'm looking to get into Security Plus right now. And I actually have my exam scheduled for Monday. And I've been reading. But at every point in time, there's still a place where I get a bit confused. Like, I'm still missing so many things, and I'm getting nervous right now. Like, do I go ahead and take the exams, or should I reschedule? I'm a bit confused. A lot of the concepts, as far as networking and A+ is concerned, I know the foundations of all of those. But when it comes to security, every day I keep finding things that I don't know. And it's getting me nervous right now. I haven't slept in 2 days preparing for Monday.
What I would recommend, and you're probably right about the right time, about a week before your exam, is a great time to start going through the exam objectives. So pull up the Security Plus exam objectives. They will give you a step-by-step checklist of everything you need to know. For example, section 1.1 is threats, attacks, and vulnerabilities, and you need to know what viruses, crypto malware, ransomware, worms, Trojan rootkit, keylogger, adware, spyware, bots, rat, logic bomb, and backdoor. That's everything in section 1.1. If you can explain to yourself in a mirror or explain to somebody else who's sitting there what those are, what their primary the primary characteristics of each one of those are, or how they are related to each other, then you now have those topics down. You can cross them off your list, and you can go to section 1.2 and go down to the next step in here. That's what I highly recommend doing. What that also does, by the way, John, is it highlights things you may not know about those. So if you happen to run across one of these and you realize, wait, I really don't know enough about cross-site scripting to be able to explain it to somebody, you can circle that one and say, I'm going to come back to that. I need to study more on that topic. That might be a good way to quickly run through these topics in your mind and circle some things to kind of focus on before the exam, just so you get some of these foundational ideas taken care of before you walk into the room.
Okay.
That will also be, if you start circling a lot of things, you may realize, I should probably push this out a week, or should I probably push this out a couple of weeks, so that you can really get those topics down.
A while now.
Do you want to keep doing it? No. At some point, you have to take the exam. But that's a good way to at least try to pull in something. Have you done a lot of Q&A? Have you done a lot of sample exams?
Yes. And at this point, I'm ranging between 60 and 75, 80%. And that's my range so far. So.
There are some good sample exams that you can purchase that are out there. There are some very bad sample exams that are available for free online. It's kind of hit or miss along those lines. So
I have the CompTIA practice test book. I'm working on that right now.
Okay. I think that's a good test. That will at least give you a feel for, how am I doing? Have I really captured all of this information? Am I able to answer the questions properly? That'll be another good check mark for you.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me right now is the wordings of the questions. Sometimes they word the questions in a way that's a bit confusing, and some of the answers are very close to the answer, and some of the options are very close to the answer, and it's a bit, I feel like I'm wasting time thinking, and I get nervous.
Fortunately, the exam questions are relatively straightforward. If you know your stuff, the answers on the exam will be pretty obvious. They don't try to trick you. They don't try to put things together that look the same but are different. If you really know your stuff, it will jump right out at you. So don't worry that they're gonna trick you or have some questions that are just difficult. I find the biggest part of the exam is there's just a lot to read. It's a very wordy exam, so be ready to read through those paragraphs to be able to pull out that information.
Yeah. All right. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I thank you very much for everything you're doing for us.
Best of luck, John. Take care. That's always good to summarize, go through and go through this stuff one more time. Go through those objectives. That's why they're there. It's remarkable how many people don't realize these are here. I was talking with somebody online who said, "Oh, I just thought it was sort of an overview. I didn't realize they gave you exactly what you needed to know on the exam." Yeah, they do. So just download them. They're free. Download them, take advantage of them. Let's go back to Hurricane Central, 407 area code. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from? Caller.
Hello, Professor Messer.
Hi. What can we do for you?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was on mute. So actually, I'm originally from Florida as well, so representing there. But right now I'm living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, good for you.
Yep. So I've passed the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus with all of your course materials. I've purchased every single course notes that you ever put out.
Thank you.
And then I did exactly what you just explained to the sir that spoke earlier, this last call, was I used the exam objectives just like a checklist, and I did exactly what you had there with the color coding. You know, like green if I know it, yellow if I'm iffy about it, and maybe like red or orange if I absolutely have never heard of it before.
Nice.
And I can tell you guys, this is a proven method. I passed all of my exams on the first try. Not tooting my own horn here, but Professor Messer, with what this program that you've got going here, truly is like a one-stop shop. Everything that you need is here. Everything that you guys need to know to pass these things, if you just follow what he's telling you, it's a proven method. I've also gone on to get my CYSA Plus, which is the cert right after Security Plus.
Nice.
And then shortly after that, I received my CISSP. I did all of this within 1 year, and I barely am about to hit my second year in the security realm.
Nice.
So just by listening to what he's telling you, and if you really put the time in, when he's saying like 6 months to get all three, that is absolutely feasible. And I can't stress enough how much just what he said about the fundamentals, it's absolutely true. This IT security career has completely transformed my life. Guys, right now, if you're looking to get into security is a field that has, it's new enough to have pioneers, but old enough to have mentors. So there's definitely people out there willing to help you. You guys can reach out to me too. I'm always in the forums answering questions for you guys. This is a really great platform. I'm really, really, really happy with what Professor Messer has built here, and his legacy will live on.
I think that's a great description of it, that it's been around enough. So there's the pioneers there, and there's the mentors there. I could not have said it any better. Congratulations on what you've done with those certifications and your position, and having that CISSP is phenomenal. It will serve you well in the future for sure. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
That's something that I love about IT. It's the reason I got so involved at creating these certifications. There were a lot of reasons why I started creating these so many years ago and having more of these certs available. Is I wanted there to be a way for people to get into IT, because I found that it was completely a way to completely change someone's life. I was able to learn these technologies and move up and be able to, first, I think, make myself a smarter person, but also those skills were valuable. People were willing to pay for those skills. And as that caller mentioned, changed his life. It changed my life, and being able to do that. It's a opportunity for you to do whatever you would like to do with this technology and be extremely successful with it. There's not a ceiling. You don't have this situation where you're only getting paid when you're on the assembly line. There's no limit, like you're never going to get off the assembly line. No, there's always somewhere else to go that's higher. There's always somewhere else to go that's farther. It's really just up to you in being able to make that happen. All the tools are there. I give you some of them. There's plenty that you could go to take it from there. And once you finish with me, there's plenty of other places to go to get even more certifications, more knowledge, and learn more about what we're doing in this industry. It really is an exciting place to be. And I'm just happy to be along for the ride and help however we are able to help. That's always exciting for us as well. Well, thank you for being here for the study group today. Thank you for being here in this first hour where I ask the questions. And thank you for being here in the second hour where you ask the questions. It's always nice to hear what's going on your side. Check back in. We've got an A+ study group 2 weeks from now, our Network Plus and Security Plus next month as well. We'd love to have you come back and join us for those. Thanks for being here this time. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group.